And this week, we're going to talk about a new action crime thriller called The Drop, starring Tom Hardy and Tony Soprano. Like, this movie looks fantastic, and I've seen it, and I can tell you it is phenomenal. Like, it's logical. It follows like a good story. All the characters are believable. You like certain people, you hate certain people, but everyone follows their path in this, which is great. There was only a few times in the movie that I felt that people said things that were above their skill level or did things that were a little bit beyond themselves. But for the most part, like, it was just right. It was just correct. You know, like the Russian mobsters weren't just like bone-breaking crazy thugs that were just out for murder. They had a business to run, so they ran their business. And James Gandolfini, he was who he was all the way through. And Tom Hardy as Bob did exactly what that dude was. But the basic deal is he finds this puppy, and that just kind of introduces him to a woman, which introduces him to a man. It was how life works, and based off a short story, which in my opinion is probably the best way to make a film, because rather than trying to wedge 300 pages of a novel into a film, you take the 40 pages and turn that into a script. So I can't recommend The Drop more. I thought it was just a great movie. Just a home run by Tom Hardy, who I'll watch in anything. I would watch Tom Hardy read the back of a cereal box and be enthralled. So check out The Drop. It's fantastic.
Ouija, a horror film in time for Halloween. A group of friends get spooked big time when they mess around with a Ouija board. The disappearance of Eleanor Rigby, Him and Her. Writer-director Ned Benson unites his previous two films, Him and Her, to illustrate a marriage in decline, a couple trying to rediscover the love they once knew. Jessica Chastain and James McAvoy star. Dansen op de Vulkaan, or Dancing on the Volcano. 16-year-old Martin loves dance school and hanging out with his mates. Only his family knows of the severe metabolic disorder which will shorten his life, but when his body increasingly fails, Martin may not be able to go on as usual. Wild Tales, an Argentinian black comedy made up of several stories, each showing people out of control and pushed to the brink in a world of corruption and social inequality. A Wolf at the Door, a thrilling Brazilian drama involving marital infidelity and a child's mysterious kidnapping. 20,000 Days on Earth, stylish and charming scripted documentary exploring the creative spirit and marking Nick Cave's 20,000 days alive so far. Song from the Forest. American Louis Sarno joined part of the Bar Arca community in the Central Africa jungle after hearing their music. He's recorded over 1,000 hours of original Bar Arca music, but after a trip back to the US and seeing the extent of globalization, Louis wonders how much longer will the sounds of the forest be heard. This week, the Amsterdam Film Show gives you a peek into an ongoing series of film events, the Underground Cinemas presented by Jeffrey Babcock. So follow us downwards as we meet Jeffrey himself to find out more.
The Cinemanita started approximately 8 years ago, and my role of it is that I'm the film programmer. I basically had a small little cinema before this one, and that place was closed down, and so it was on a Leidsestraat. And so then I basically just was hunting around. I came to the New Anita. I met Olga, who's running the New Anita, along with Jeroen, and proposed to them the idea of making a cinema on one of the nights when they're normally closed, which Olga thought immediately, well, Monday night would be a good night. And it's turned out to be fantastic because a lot of people, it's an off night, you know. A lot of people are still charged from the weekend in a way, but at the same time, there's not much going on.
Hello and welcome. to the Cinemanita, and they're nice guys. Look at it, nice guys. This is like horror film, like of ex-girlfriends horror. You know, I try to expand the idea of horror a little bit, not just vampires. I'm showing a film which I feel is kind of apocalyptic in tone.
The new Anita, well, it's kind of a lounge type of bar. It's the only location where I consistently show shorts. It started right from the very beginning 8 years ago. And so I feel that there's an incredible regulation and standardization of what's possible with film. And it means it's supposed to be between an hour and a half, and it can be longer now because of some longer films, some epic films that have stretched the boundary a little bit that way. But as shorter films, they have no place. And so these films are often neglected. So I always, every Monday night, give short films some kind of space before a feature film. So we show it like a 15, 20-minute film, and then we have a small break, and then we show a feature film.
So he thought about it for a little while, and he said, Jim, you take these unrolled. All these rolls are for you, so that you can make your movie. And that's the only reason we're able to see the movie we're going to see tonight, because it was made on the leftover film rolls of Wim Wenders' last movie. The style of the movie, very low-key, deadpan humor. Each scene in the film is one long shot. One shot for every scene. I'll be hanging around the bar afterwards, and I would love to talk to you about it. Thank you for coming once again.
And so I have to bring my own equipment. Basically, the new Anita is not a cinema the other nights of the week. It's for concerts. I think that there is this possibility, and it should be happening more in Amsterdam, of any space can be turned into a cinema pretty easily these days. In any case, much more easily than ever before in history. Because before, movie projectors were huge and heavy, and it was very difficult to move them around. Now we have the possibility of Blu-ray and high-definition screenings, and it's relatively possible to do it. And I'm doing it 4 or 5 times a week, so that means that it is possible to do it for sure. And it's very international, of course, because it's English subtitles on all the films. And so that means that we have people coming from all different countries, from all around the world, because Amsterdam is such an international city. But a lot of these people, once they get into Amsterdam, start going into their own little corners of people that they're familiar with, and so I try to break that as much as possible. I make the films very cheap, and so that means that anybody from any economic background, also not just ethnic background, but any economic background can also come to the screenings. So sometimes you have people here, I know a guy that was a millionaire that was coming to the screens. I've had people from VPRO television coming to the screenings. And then you have, Hungarian punks who are, basically penniless and so forth, coming to the screens. And this is one of the very few locations I feel that these two different kinds of people can come together and meet. And the culture aspect has been pushed aside, actually, and either if it's not been pushed aside, it's been commercialized. So it just everything becomes business, everything becomes the same in a way. So I decided that when I wanted to do cinemas, I believe cinema is magical, and magic is subversive, I think.
When you're watching the movie, I think it's very clear that Jim Jarmusch isn't imitating any other movie that you've seen. Isn't imitating any other movie that he's seen. And there's so many fucking films these days that are just imitating other films that this becomes incredibly fresh.
When I make the cinemas, I do this whole circuit of cinemas every week. I decided to call it underground cinemas because underground is something that's been lost. There's always been undergrounds throughout history, no matter what background people are coming from, whether they were artists or whether they were religious or whether they're political factions. There's always been undergrounds, but today there's almost no underground. Everything is so quickly absorbed into the mainstream that I felt it's time again to have an underground, and so I did it with my cinemas.
To find out more about Amsterdam's alternative underground cinemas, start at Cinemanita at De Nieuwe Anita and follow the trail from there.